Have you ever missed a shot because you were fumbling with camera settings? Too slow shutter, wrong aperture or incorrect autofocus mode. Suddenly the perfect moment is gone forever. Today I will show you how to set up custom camera modes so that your camera instantly switches between settings for action, low light or general photography purposes. On Canon cameras, these are C1, C2 and C3 modes. Custom modes are essentially saved presets of all the camera settings we want. We can set our camera to best fit a situation and then save all of these settings in one of the custom modes so that we don't have to go and tweak everything again. We just have a preset to start from. In some ways, custom modes are similar to the recall shooting function that I set to this button. I made a full video on how I set it up. I will link it up here. Feel free to go and check it out, but make sure you come back for this one. Back to the custom modes. I find them very useful for wildlife and travel photography, as conditions are always changing and we need to quickly adapt to a lot of different situations. The problem is not only that every time we have to go in and dial the new settings, we can do that. The problem is we go through a very dark forest area, we bump up the ISO at 6400, then we go out in the sun, we forget about that setting, we take up the camera because we have a beautiful sighting, take some shots and they are all overexposed because we forgot to adjust the setting and put it back to auto or some lower value. After missing countless opportunities because of these wrong settings that I was forgetting about, I found 3 custom setups that I use all the time and that make my days out in the field much simpler. So let's see exactly how I set them up for the main situations I will encounter on a safari day. Okay, so let's start with C1, which is my general purpose setup. For this one, I will set the camera to manual mode, auto ISO, they are already set. I will set the aperture at the widest, so in this case f2.8. I will leave it there, as if I'm using f4 lens, it will still be brought at the widest aperture of f4. The shutter speed, I will place it at 1,000th of a second, as it's fast enough for most situations and slower action. This type of setting is my starting point for a general situation, so I don't need a super fast shutter speed. Then we have the autofocus mode, which is servo AF, AF method, which is tracking. Subject, I will put it to animals, eye detection enabled. Okay, this is everything I need. This setup is a very good starting point and it gives me a lot of flexibility. Also, I have to remember to bring back the exposure compensation to 0, so I have a clear starting point. I can then add some negative or positive exposure compensation. Now that I have these settings dialed, what I want to do is I go in the menu and I find my custom shooting mode. I will register all of these settings in the C1. I say OK, and the camera will save all of these settings in the C1 mode. Now I will proceed with the C2 mode, which is my fast action setup. For this one, I will leave the ISO on automatic mode. The aperture is still on 2.8, but the shutter speed, I want it at 1/4000th of a second, which is enough to freeze almost every action I might encounter. I will also go on the AF menu and I will change the method to expand autofocus area, as this will provide a faster response of the autofocus and better precision. I will go back to my custom shooting modes, register in C2 mode. Okay. My last one, the C3, I use it for low light situations. In this case, we have to tweak a bit more the settings. So we still are in manual mode, but in this case, I will set the ISO to 6400, which is a very good starting point for low light situations. I don't want the ISO to be on auto mode in this case because I might have a spotlight on my subject, or maybe there is some bright highlight somewhere that I want to prioritize. So I want to use full manual in this case to have all the control I need. The aperture stays at 2.8, of course. The shutter speed, I will bring it down to 1/200th of a second as a starting point, and from there I can move it wherever I need. I will also change the AF method to one shot and single point autofocus. This is because this setting is the one that works best in very low light scenarios. Tracking sometimes doesn't work. It keeps missing the focus if it's very dark. So this is optimized for low light. Again, I will go in the menu, register on C3 mode, and this is it. Now I can just move to my custom 1 for most situations, custom 2 if I have some action, back to custom 1. You see that I'm very fast at changing this. One important thing that I forgot to mention is we have to disable these auto update settings. This means that even if we change these settings in here, whenever I go back to a different mode and come back here, I will have the same starting point. So I avoid the risk to adjust these settings to fit a specific need or a situation, forget about these settings, and then messing it up the next time. If you want to see how I use these custom modes in the field, remember to subscribe to the channel, as I'm currently going out for a 60 days safari trip that will bring me to some incredible locations in Namibia, Botswana and Zambia. Also, I made a video about all the gear that I packed. Feel free to check it out, and I'll see you in the next video.